So we're looking at the writing test, the IELTS writing exam, giving you a little introduction and the basics of what needs to be done and what you need to do to practice and to prepare well. That's what we're looking at in this short class. So the IELTS writing exam is an hour long, and the task 1 you're given about 20 minutes, and in task 2 about 40 minutes. Obviously, if you spend more time on one, you have less time on the other. There's a minimum requirement. You have to write at least 150 words in task 1 and at least 250 words in task 2. Otherwise, you get marks down, and we'll make sure you don't do that. So all the advice that we give you in these classes and in person are based on these notes. The examiner's notes, the public version, the private version is very similar, but obviously we can't talk about that, and that will get us into trouble. So these task 1 notes are exactly what we use to help you, guide you through and get you that higher score that you actually need. And again, for task 2 we do the same in that part of the question too. Please don't worry about learning all these words. There are some very fancy words here and they're not all very helpful or useful to you, and it's a lot of time if you need to understand each and every sentence. But basically it is a good idea to get a general picture of what you're being asked to do. If you're looking for 7, for instance, check out number 7 for all of those 4 categories. In task 1 of the exam, you're going to be looking at 7 possible questions, and we'll do a class on each one, and hopefully you'll be doing writing on each one if you're doing the academic test, which I guess most of you will be doing. So we'll familiarise you with all those different types, and if you're doing the general test you'll just have 2. They do require a certain style, and again you're going to learn those in those classes. They're not as complicated perhaps as the academic test, but that's the way it is. If you're doing the academic test or the general test, most of the task 2 questions are very, very similar, and you get 5 different types in general. We're going to look at them in detail in each of the classes. Okay, so we've looked at an introduction on what the actual test is. We've seen the basics, what we have to do in the test. Now we're going to look at a little bit more about what you have to do to prepare. Now the first thing, and I'm going to mention this first because this is something that students don't always do, and they often say, I don't have time to do this, but it's really, really important to always have a plan. Always have a plan, yeah. I don't have time, they say, but you really must. If you want to do well, you really must. A basic plan at the very least. There'll be specific classes on this and how to do the plan really well, and how to do a basic plan as well for both task 1 and task 2. So don't worry about that, but we're going to teach you how to do that. So paraphrasing, once again, paraphrasing, changing the word order or using synonyms for the words in the question. It's super important. It's very, very important in your essay because it's the first part of your essay. It's the first sentence that the examiner will read, and paraphrasing well gets you off to a great start. We'll be doing classes specifically on how to paraphrase and the reasons for paraphrasing all the way through your essay. The second thing to mention is let's look at real questions. Okay, let's use real questions. If you find questions on the internet, they're not always real and they can cause all kinds of problems because they get you into bad habits. So use real questions wherever possible, please. The third thing is to say that basically you're going to have to do a lot of work. Yeah, we're looking at writing at least 7 answers if you're doing the general test, and at least 12 essays if you're doing the academic test. And to really do well, you really want to practice each of those 3 times. So that's a lot of work. You don't have to do it 3 times, but generally 3 times is a really good approach if you really want to do well. So just have a realistic perspective of how long this is going to take you. And to mention today, don't worry, we're here to help. We know this takes a lot of work, so we understand how to help you as quickly as possible so you don't waste your time continually taking the IELTS test and being disappointed. This is going to prepare you professionally. So like an athlete, you're going to be needing to practice a lot and keep fit by practicing daily if you can. Great, so that's it for this class. Don't worry about the individual points mentioned in this class. We're going to cover them in detail in specific classes in the future. See you in the next class.